I've been watching a lot of challenge runs lately. Elden Ring, Pokemon, Elder Scrolls. They're fun little self-contained things, you set a goal and then you do the goal and hooray, we're done. They're a lot of fun, and I'd love to do one. The problem is, I'm not very good at video games. If you're new here, you might find that shocking. I make videos about video games. How could I be bad at video games? I'm as pale as a ghost. If I knew why I was bad at video games, I wouldn't be. If you're not new here, what I said is obvious. But what I lack in skill, I make up for in persistence. And no game requires more persistence than Runescape. Today, we're going to be doing a challenge run in Runescape. And I want this to be something anyone can enjoy, so if you're not familiar with Runescape, don't worry. I got you covered, babe. So now imagine you load up your favorite game, and everything is gone. No gold, no items, nothing in your inventory, head empty, no thoughts. And then you go to your bank, and you can't even access your bank. It's like some hacker not only hacked your account and took your stuff, but they also took away your ability to open the bank. They bought the bank and they locked you out. So what do? Well, obviously the first thing is to get a Zook kill. Admittedly, that might be something uniquely RuneScape, but just roll with it. Zook isn't what you would call an endgame boss, but he's certainly not an endgame boss. He's up there. He's tough, but not too tough. Not quite the main course, but not quite a starter, somewhere in between. An hors d'oeuvre, I guess, unless a starter is an hors d'oeuvre. The challenge is simple. Starting with absolutely nothing, and not being able to trade, because I'm an Ironman, by the way. Get its Zook kill, and hopefully try to get an Igneous Stone, which means killing Zook without using any of the checkpoints leading up to him. But the thing is, I want to do this as quickly as possible. That means no extraordinary long grinds. I want this to all be done in a single video, and I need to stop looking at my face. Look at the lens, damn it. So there are a couple facets with this challenge. Before you fight Zook, you have to progress through a bunch of waves of similar monsters on the way there. Rock creatures, lava creatures, because he's a lava elemental deity thing. Every few waves there are challenge waves, and if you successfully complete the challenge waves, or at the very least survive through the challenge wave, you get a checkpoint. The checkpoint lets you leave, restock if you need to, and come back and progress where you left off. So I went into this challenge with sort of a loose plan, but I figured what would be more fun is dealing with the surprises along the way. So I really only planned the first few steps. First of all, removing all the cosmetic overrides because we want to be able to see the horrible mismatch of gear we'll be left with. With that sorted, it was time to get some gold. Some starter GP, just a bit so we can buy shop items like runes. There are several ways of getting raw gold in RuneScape, but most methods require some amount of input. A lot of it involves using high alchemy and converting items straight into GP, but we need runes for that, and I didn't have any. Oh. I went with shifting tombs. Thievery and grave robbing are such an integral part of RuneScape, it makes sense to go there first. There's an entire minigame, 2 actually, dedicated to stealing stuff from the dead, both of which are in the desert. Smashing the urns rewards gold, and you'll be rewarded with a couple dozen thousand coins if you successfully clear the tomb, but we're primarily here for Feathers of Ma'at. When you open a chest, you get around 10 or 20 of these feathers, which can sell to a shop for 450 GP each. I spent about a half hour running through the tombs, and I got 532 feathers and 261,000 GP. I then sold those feathers to the vendor who sells you feathers. He buys them back for 450 GP each, and I ended up with 500,000 GP total. Quite a bit of GP, good for buying some runes. With the money, the first thing I did was run to the rune shops and buy up their stocks of soul runes, blood runes, and water runes because we'll be needing those later for combat. I also grabbed body, mind, chaos, and fire runes. I didn't think I'd use the chaos runes, but I wasn't sure, so I bought them anyway. The body, mind, and fires I was planning on using to make some Viswax. Viswax has a variety of uses, but I was only interested in it for the quick lodestone teleports. A single piece of Viswax becomes 10 quick teleports. Think of lodestones as fast travel points, but it takes time to cast the spell to go there unless you have quick teleport charges. I did have some before starting the challenge, but I felt wrong to use them, Just pretend the hacker stole them. To maximize the amount of wax I got from my runes, I rearranged them in the machine, not remembering that rearranging them increases the rune cost, so I need to get more runes. Just ignore the panel to the right, those are the runes in my bank, but the conceit is that I can't use my bank, so also pretend the hacker hid them or something, I don't know. Rather than running off and buying a few more runes and running back to the wizard's tower, I popped into the runespan for a bit. In here, you can siphon creatures and runic nodes to create runespan runes. You can't leave runespan with those runes, but you do accumulate points. It's like a currency, a thank you from the wizards maintaining the place. With 175 runespan points, which didn't take very long to get, I bought another Wicked Hood from Wizard Phoenix, and this brings up an important point. There are some unlocks and perks tied to the character itself, things that you can't lose regardless of your access to the bank. I'm not going to not use these things, so let's pretend the hacker was able to lock the bank, but the hacker couldn't affect anything else. It's tough to do this on an account that's not fresh, and if it's a fresh account, it would take weeks to do what I'm trying to do, so just, if you have a problem, tough. Because I fed my Wicked Hood all the rune talismans in the past, it means I can teleport to any of the rune crafting altars without needing to feed it again. But if I'm honest, I didn't use the hood all that much anyway. After buying more runes from Betty in Port Sarim, I returned to the tower, made 66 Viswax, and granted myself 660 quick teleport charges, enough to cover me for the whole challenge. Now it was time to get a weapon. Because I have Greater Concentrated Blast unlocked, an ability unlocked that modifies an old ability, something a hacker can't take away from me, I figured dual wield magic would be my best option. Besides, the next best weapon I could use is a level 78 Sun Spear, and I can't reclaim the Sun Spear because it's in my bank, and the person you can buy it from in the game, the NPC who will sell it back to you, he won't sell it to you if you already have one, because you can't have two. So that's stuck in the bank and you can't use it. So I bought some air runes from Baba Yaga so I could use some basic magic attacks, and headed off to Darkmire, the city of the vampires. And that's vampire with a Y because they're cool. There is an amulet that can teleport you straight there. If you lose the amulet, you can reclaim it from this crypt where you got it the first time, but like the Sun Spear, it was in my bank. We're stuck hoofing it. Running through Mire Ditch seems like a daunting task, but there's one quest that unlocks a bunch of shortcuts through the place, so it wasn't all that bad. I chopped down a couple blisterwood logs from the blisterwood tree, a species of tree that's poison to vampires that they keep around for some reason. Maybe it's like the smallpox reserves. You know, we keep smallpox contained just in case it gets out and we need to make more vaccines. Ironically, it would only get out and reinfect people if it got out of the reserves, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. We gotta keep it so we can protect ourselves from it in case what we're keeping hurts us. Although I think there was one case where there were like dried scabs in a book, in like a medical book, that got out, and then it was a whole big issue. I don't know, maybe if it's true, editor, me, put information here. Is it true? Oh, okay. So I fletched these logs into a wand and orb. They're not the greatest weapons, being only level 70, but it was the best I could do. Now that I had a weapon, I wanted to get a ring. But not just any ring. I wanted the Explorer's Ring 4, a reward from the Lumbridge and Draenor Elite Achievement set. Once you complete that set, you can reclaim the ring from Ned and Draenor for 50k. The stats on it are okay, I guess. But it also provides you with 30 free high alchemy casts per day. It'll be great until we get some nature runes. But I spent all but 14 of my GP on runes. To get more gold, I turned back to thieving, but this time, from the living. There are safes scattered all across Galenor, and they all contain loot. What a surprise, safes have loot. Most of that loot goes straight into your thief sack, which you exchange for XP and gold. Sometimes if you're lucky, you'll get extra goodies which sell for even more gold, things like jewelry and gems. After fencing the loot and buying my ring, I realized I had to fix something real quick. Something I should have done before the challenge. Fortunately, it hasn't made much of a difference yet. Archaeology relics. They're little passive buffs that you unlock through the archaeology skill. The ones I had active provided combat benefits, and I wanted to disable them before I started doing any combat. If I want to re-enable them later, I'll have to re-enable them later. You gotta do that with archaeology and Chronos. We'll explain it later, don't worry. But now it was time to do some combat. First, I wanted to get a lychee seed. Some of the potions I wanted to make require primal extract as an ingredient, and you can only get that by turning the fruit into pulp and then turning the pulp into extract. It's a whole process. The plants that these fruit grow off of can take about 9 hours to grow, so I wanted to get that rolling right now, before I started working on other things. Ripper dinosaurs drop the seeds quite frequently, and you can get them stuck behind geometry so they can't even attack you. This is called safe spotting. I only had to kill a single one for the seed. After planting the seed, I went to the mage arena in the wilderness and reclaimed a Guthix cape, a decently strong magic cape, and bought a staff of Guthix for 80k. The staff comes with a special attack that effectively reduces the defense of the target you hit with it. Then I remembered the Wicked Hood and went ahead and crafted some blood runes. You can pull some pure essence from the hood every day, so I just used that essence and made around 200 blood runes. Returning to combat, I assumed aberrant specters would be a decent source of herbs and seeds, and some alkables. I was primarily interested in fellstalk seeds because I knew we'd need quite a few for prayer renewal potions and elder overloads. Oh, it looks like the hacker left some herbs in my farming patch. Let's just pick those and pretend they were never there. I planted the fellstalk seeds and treated them with regular compost since the farmer near the patch sells regular compost. Super compost would be better, but using what the tool leprechaun is holding on to feels like cheating. I also needed morchella mushrooms. And I find it interesting that Google Docs keeps trying to correct Morchella and capitalize the M, like it's a name. I know Morchella mushrooms are a real thing, but I don't know why it's capitalized. So some enemies drop them, but those enemies are kind of strong. Instead, I bought a leaf-bladed spear from a Slayer Master and went and killed some Turoths. At this point, I realized I should have just skipped the Aber Inspectors because Turoths are way better. Yeah, you're limited to using a specific weapon, but the drops are so much better. Happy with the number of seeds I had, and with a bit more GP in my pouch, I went to the Mages Guild and bought more fire runes. I also bought nature runes because my ring ran out of daily alchemy charges, so I had to alchemy myself. Not alchemy myself, I don't want to turn into gold, but I had to cast alchemy myself using runes. Now that I had a healthy supply of runes, it was time to move on to some supply gathering. Want to know how? That's right, more thieving. I bought a thieving skill kit from Martin Thwaite for the low price of 99,000 GP. 1,000 GP for every level. When worn, all items you pickpocket are noted. And that's perfect because there are some elves in Prifddinas whose pants are bulging with loot. The Kadarin and Iorwerth clan elves are my primary targets. They carry super attack, strength, defense, magic, and ranged potions. Single doses, but they add up. We need these potions to make better potions, and stealing them is easier than mixing them ourselves. They also carry cooked sharks. They're not the best food in the game, but they're still pretty good, especially since they're free. This will be relevant later, trust me. You can pick the elves' pockets until they catch you 3 times, then you need to piss off until they forget you stole from them. Elves are clearly closely related to June bugs. They're friggin' idiots. It only takes 20 minutes and they forget about it. So after finishing up with the Kadarin elves, I bought another achievement set reward from Arianen, the Tyrannan quiver for 50k. It can be worn on our ammo slot, providing a meager prayer bonus, but it also lets us teleport to the mushroom patch in Tyrannan as much as we want. Convenient little thing. I didn't think we need all the mushrooms from a single patch, but these take time to grow, so just in case I needed more, I'd have them planted. After finishing a round of pickpocketing the Iorwerth elves, I ventured to the city of the Tsar. Within the city is a minigame called the Fight Cauldron. Fight stuff, get rewarded with obsidian shards. We could smelt these shards into bars and turn the bars into obsidian armor. The armor isn't any better than plain level 60 armor, but it comes with an innate damage reduction when fighting Tsar or Tsar-like monsters. With the helmet, you also get a 10% accuracy boost against them, but this doesn't apply to Zook, unfortunately. It's still good though. The armor is so effective that you'd use it, or at least pieces of it, even if you weren't doing any kind of dumb challenge. It's not a small single-digit damage reduction either. The plate body, the plate legs, the helmet, the gloves, and the boots all together give you a 45% damage reduction, which you can increase to 55% by sacrificing Tokkul, Tsar currency, which is made out of their corpses, to the coffers outside the Fight Cauldron. A full set, excluding the shield, requires 12 bars. 1 bar requires 12 shards, so we need 144 shards.
I want to be safe, so I ordered a gross.
A gross? Stu, that's 144 shards?
Oops.
Fortunately, this is a safe minigame. That means if we die, we don't die. Rather than getting sent to Death's office and having to pay a death fee, we just get plopped outside the Fight Cauldron. It makes healing yourself very easy. The danger is if you die without claiming your shards, you lose half of them. I periodically left the cauldron, collected some shards, and re-entered, running straight into the lava if I wanted to top off my health and prayer points. I made sure to get extra shards to repair the armor, should it get too banged up while fighting through the waves before Zook. I didn't think it would, but the armor breaking mid-fight would be kind of a bummer. The cauldron took long enough that my felstock finished growing, I harvested my crops, and used the tool leprechauns to note them. If you're familiar with the old school Ultimate Ironman, you might think that I could use noted items on a bank to unnote them. That's actually not true. Using items on a bank in Runescape 3 just asks if you want to deposit them. Instead, if we want to unnote stuff, we have to sell it to a shop and then buy it back. It's usually marked up by like 300%. It's not too big of a deal though, because these low-level supplies and things don't really buy or sell for that much anyway. The herbs you sell for 1 GP and you buy them back for 1 GP, it's not a problem. It is risky though. Not because other people might buy your stuff, you see shops are personalized so people can't see what you sell to it, but the way shops update the stocks is that it will add an extra thing if the stock is too low, or it will take something away if the stock is too high every, I don't know how long the ticks are, but there's like a shop tick. Think of it like that. So if you sell a single item to a shop and then you go to buy it, but the shop tick activates, you can't buy the item. The item will go away. I'm sure I'll avoid this problem. This won't come up. This won't affect me. This won't be an issue. Definitely not. Another round of elf robbery got me enough gold to afford a portal retuning. For 100k, you can redirect where the portals in War's Retreat send you. I set mine to the Zekar front. The Shadow Pontifex ring causes Elder Troves to drop from monsters and bosses in the Elder God Wars fronts. I had unlocked the passive version of that ring's effect, so it's just innate to my character now. There's a cooldown on how often the Troves can drop. Now and then I popped over to the front and killed a Zekar her. The loot from these troves could be really useful. The first one had 50k in it, not bad. Rather than waiting for my mushrooms to finish growing, I thought about killing Lampin Flora. They drop both Morchella mushrooms and mud runes, the latter of which we would need for making extreme magic potions. But I found they're a bit too spicy for me. Back to waiting. In the meantime, I played a bit of Shopkeeper Shuffle while trying to make prayer potions. I bought vials from Jaddix and Taverley and began selling and buying herbs and snape grass at the Falador General Store. This whole thing is really difficult when you have limited inventory space, and it'll become way more relevant later. Everything is going to become way more relevant later. That's the whole theme of this thing is, oh, I didn't realize this would be as hard as it was. This will be a problem later. I was just about to turn my 3-dose potion. I'm gonna look here. I was just about to turn my 3-dose potions into 4-dose potions, but then I realized I can improve these prayer potions a little bit. If you add ground wyvern bones to the prayer potions, suddenly it becomes super. It restores more prayer points, so why not? You're supposed to drink a wormfire potion or use an elemental shield when fighting skeletal wyverns, but I didn't have either of those, and they die so fast it really didn't even matter. I only needed 6 bones anyway. I did reclaim an enhanced Excalibur before fighting these guys, because every 5 minutes you can activate the sword and heal for a total of 40% of your health over 42 seconds. A little bit of extra healing is always useful, and we will be using it during these Zook waves. To save inventory space, I mined some red sandstone and made potion flasks. They hold 6 doses of a potion rather than 4, but they can't be reused. Drinking the last dose causes the glass to shatter, so close your eyes, I guess. I lucked out and got some noted extreme ranging potions from an Elder Trove. While I kill Lampin Flora, let me explain why so much of my inventory is occupied by potions. It's all about the overloads. For someone with max combat stats, an overload potion will boost their stats by 17. This applies to all combat stats. Other potions have their boosts deplete over time, but overloads reapply that buff multiple times over the 6 minutes it lasts. Even if your stats are drained, they'll be reboosted to plus 17 above your level. Supreme overloads are the same, but it's a plus 19 boost. Elder overloads are plus 21. The problem is that the potions require a lot of ingredients. To make a single overload, you need an extreme attack, strength, defense, magic, and ranged potion, all 3 doses, and a clean torsal herb. To make extreme potions, you need their super versions, plus some secondary ingredient, respectively a clean Avanto, dwarfweed, lancedyme, ground mud rune, and 5 Grenwall spikes. And that's just to make a single 3-dose overload. To make a supreme overload, you need a 4-dose overload and another set of super potions, all 4 doses. Plus a crystal flask. Upgrading to an Elder Overload only requires a single Fellstalk and some primal extract. It's a bit easier. Needless to say, it's a lot of ingredients. It's less of a potion and more like a stew. Fortunately, we can get a ton of super potions from the elves in Prifddinas, so that simplifies a huge part of the process. Getting the extreme potions from the Elder Trove just makes things even simpler. I could craft mud runes, but that's a bit involved, so I figured it'd be better just to get them as a drop. Lampin Flora delivered and dropped 10 mud runes, good for at least 10 extreme magic potions. I knew I need a bunch of gold to reclaim some of the other combat related items, so I continued stealing from safes and elves whenever I had the chance. While thieving, I was theory crafting a bit. What would be the fastest way of getting torstals? Planting seeds would guarantee a few herbs, but the seeds are pretty rare. Burning Vire corpses has a chance to produce noted torstals, but you have to burn the corpses with pyre logs that need sacred oil, and then you get a key, and then you have to take the key to a thing and open the thing. It's annoying. The Sun Spear can automatically burn the Vires after you kill it with it, so you wouldn't have to go through all those steps. Unfortunately, we can't reclaim the Sun Spear. However, there is a sword version of the Sun Spear, which is different than the Sun Spear. It's a weaker weapon, but it still has the same effect. It burns the Vires. We can reclaim it from Ivan Strom, the same guy who won't give us back our regular Sun Spear, for only 100k. I mined some silver, made a silver sickle, and returned to Darkmire, making the long trek through Mireditch. With another blisterwood log, I turned the silver sickle into an offhand blisterwood sickle, and got to work killing Vires. They dropped enough alkables to cover the cost of the Sunspear sword, but they seemed more keen on dropping Ranars and Snapdragons, and not Torstals. No Lantidymes either. Something in my gut was telling me to try something else, and with the announcement of the Infernal Star event happening in the wilderness, I left Darkmire. Every hour there's an event that occurs in the wilderness. Sometimes there's special events and award more loot. Most of the loot this time around was useless for my current challenge, but the Necronium salvage alked for a total of 350k. It was time to buy some jewelry. Get some of that bling. I'm gonna edit that out, that was stupid. From Maria outside Ormod's manor, I reclaimed the Asylum Surgeon's ring for 500k. It provides some points of damage in each combat style, but also comes with an added effect. While wearing the ring, there is a 10% chance that your threshold or ultimate ability will not consume any adrenaline. Adrenaline is just a combat resource. You build it up with basic abilities and you spend it with thresholds and ultimate abilities. The less adrenaline you have to spend on thresholds and ultimates, the more thresholds and ultimates you can cast so you can do more damage. There are some minute details I'm glossing over, but it's not important. Then I went to Mr. Mordout, our friendly museum dragon and reclaimed a Dragon Rider amulet for 500k. It gives 30 points of damage to every combat style and 10 points to our prayer bonus. It basically just means our prayer points will drain a bit slower. It also increases the damage of our Dragon Breath ability by 10%, and when we use Dragon Breath, sometimes it'll leave a damage over time effect on the enemy. It's not very significant, but hey, damage is damage. Now I felt ready to do some temple trekking. It's a simple minigame where you escort people between Paterdomus and Berderot in Mauritania. It's mostly just little micro events and puzzles you do a few times before getting a reward. Kill some monsters, cross a bog, feed some idiots, easy. The reward token offers some token rewards. What I wanted was red tokens, the best tokens, because exchanging them for herbs has a chance of giving you torstals. Yellow tokens can't give torstals, so if I happened to get one, I exchanged it for raw sharks. No other reward was anywhere near as useful. Also, you get these items noted, so it's very good for inventory space. After a few dozen treks, I got 5 grimy torstals, but I still needed lantidimes, which I got not 20 minutes later. Now it was time to suffer through the long and arduous process of making an overload. Selling noted potions and herbs, buying them back, making the extremes, dropping items to the floor to make room for more items, and ugh. You know, it ain't easy not having a bank. Damn that hacker. I considered summoning a pack yak. You see, there are summoning familiars that do a variety of things. Some of them help you with your skills, so you can fish faster or mine faster. Other ones help you in combat, so you can kill faster. And some are beasts of burden, and they can hold stuff for you. Pack yaks can hold up to 30 items. More than I can hold. I even went to Yatuzo and bought noted yak hide to make some yak pouches. Anything to make mixing the overloads easier. But I didn't. Not yet. I didn't make the pouch yet. I made more overloads until I had 2 4-dose potions and then said screw it and made some pack yaks. I stored my supplies, herbs, potions, and sharks mostly. With the yak I went to Prifddinas to mine some crystal flecked sandstone. 2 crystal flasks and 2 sets of 4-dose super potions was all it took to turn the overloads into supreme overloads. Once my lychee bush finished growing, I'd be ready to make elder overloads. With the extra inventory space, I went and collected some of my morchella mushrooms which had finished growing, and I made a few prayer renewals. They act like prayer potions, but restore prayer slowly over 6 minutes rather than all at once. I made potion flasks for them as well. Just so you're aware, using prayers cost prayer points. Prayer points is kind of like, I don't know, prayer juice. You have a certain amount of juice, and there are potions you could drink to replenish that juice. With all the overload stuff mostly sorted, I shifted my focus to runes. I didn't know how many runes I would actually need to make it through all the waves, but I wanted to make sure I had more than enough. The spell I was planning on using is Incite Fear. It grants a buff that reduces the adrenaline cost of the ultimate ability Tsunami by 12%, stacking up to 5 times. Instead of costing 100% adrenaline, it only costs 40. I even have a passive effect on my character that makes ultimates cost only 90% adrenaline, so Tsunami will only cost 30%. The Incite Fear spell also has an area of effect. It's not super strong, but damage is damage. It's a very strong spell, but it uses a fair bit of runes. 10 water runes, 2 blood runes, and 1 soul rune. Fortunately, runes are only consumed on auto attack when the stacks are building up, or when the AoE procs, but we'd still need quite a few runes. I would assume at least 1,000 casts. Crafting the runes is out of the question. Running pure essence to the altars would be a long and arduous process since we have no rune crafting pouches to carry the essence, those are in the bank. And our inventory is rather cramped. For soul runes, I opted for getting them as drops. I went to the Sithrid Abbey and grabbed some Abbey robes. They count as Saradomin items, so they can make the Saradomin monsters in the God Wars dungeon non-aggressive. I went to the Saradomin encampment and started killing spiritual mages. They drop soul runes in stacks of 20 somewhat frequently. Some spiritual warriors got hit in the crossfire and occasionally dropped lots of rune salvage for me to alch. Honestly, this place dropped a lot of alchables. I should have come here sooner. I started with 170,000 GP and about 200 soul runes. 20 minutes later, I had about 1,000,000 GP and over 400 soul runes. This is where I called it a day. Tomorrow I thought I'd log back in, pick my lychee fruit, farm some more soul runes, prepare a little bit more for Zook. But then I logged in and I saw this. My UI was all kinds of messed up. All these random, sort of transparent lines were running through everything for no apparent reason. And there was this green asshole who kept sending me voice memos. I didn't want this graphical glitch to impede my process, but I also didn't want to have this textural weirdness ruining my video. Thankfully, I did get it sorted before fighting Zook, but the next 5 minutes we'll be using the jank footage. I stopped killing spiritual mages with over 800 soul runes and nearly 1.5 million GP. Now, blood runes. It turned out enemies in the waves leading up to Zook had a decent chance of dropping blood runes, and the enemies in the first 4 waves aren't all that bad, so I just went in there and killed them for a bit. Most of the enemies use melee, so standing in this southeastern corner protects you from most of them. More than 500 blood runes for about 5 minutes worth of work. I didn't want to treat this loot chest like a proxy bank, so I took out what was useful and sent the rest to my bank, effectively deleting the items. Also, I got an onyx at one point, and you could use the onyx to make a pretty strong amulet, but that felt like too much luck was involved, so I threw that in the bank as well. I didn't want to use it, you know? You gotta maintain the integrity of the challenge. Because it was a new day, I did another rune shop run and bought several thousand water runes and a few hundred soul and blood runes. I also grabbed air and fire runes for air and fire combat spells and for casting high alchemy. The lychee bush finished growing as well. We only need 1 fruit since a single lychee becomes 7 pulp, and 1 pulp becomes 3 primal extracts. It's 1 extract per overload, so it's more than plenty. Being sick of all the potions floating around my inventory and pack yak, I opted to make 1 more elder overload. I had enough resources for it, I just had to do the shopkeeper shuffle. And you know what happened? After making all the extreme potions, I sold 2 of my noted torstals to the shop, bought 2 torstals from the shop, but the purchase occurred at the same time as the game tick that updates the shop. Yeah, 1 of my torstals vanished. This means going back to temple trekking for 1 more torstal to make 1 more overload because I just need 1 more dose. Pretty annoying. 20 minutes later, I had my torstal. I made another supreme overload, then finally, my 3rd elder overload. Just a few more things to square away before we take on Zook. First, picking some flowers. At Het's Oasis, there are 4 different flower plants we can nurture and harvest from. There's a slight chance that instead of harvesting the expected flower, you'll instead get some golden roses. If we use those golden roses on the flower baskets around Het's Oasis, we can spawn dazzling whirligigs. By commanding the crocodile on the shore, we can catch the whirligig and get its shell. This game is absurd. A single shell can be crushed into a prayer powder that, when applied, will cause you to regain prayer points equal to 2.5% of the damage you take. This lasts for 30 minutes. I managed to get 5 shells before losing my mind. I also used the regular roses to gather 75 gliding whirligig shells. Like the dazzling shells, you can crush 15 of these to make a powder that improves the effectiveness of protection prayers. It boosts their protection from 50% to 60%. Every bit of damage mitigation helps. Next, weapon poison. It's another potion that gives you a chance to inflict extra damage. I killed liverworts for coconuts and killed cave horrors for poison ivy berries. I filled 10 vials with coconut milk, gathered cave nightshades in the scavid caves, and made enough weapon poisons plus to fill 3 potion flasks. It's not as good as weapon poison plus, but weapon poison plus requires ingredients that come from farm animals, and raising farm animals wouldn't be hard, but getting beans to buy the farm animals would be a whole process. Now on to relic powers. Remember earlier when I said we'd re-enable them later? Well, later is now. I needed about 10,000 chronotes to activate the powers I wanted. The easiest way to get those chronotes is to give art critic Jacques 2 sets of 3 Saradominus paintings in the Radiant Renaissance collection. All 3 come from a single excavation spot, and all the materials to restore those artifacts are also there. By stealing porters and energy from the Amlod elves, I can send excavated materials straight to my material storage. Is using the material storage against the spirit of this challenge? I don't think so. If you think so, and you really have a problem with that, write down your concerns on a 3x4 index card, place it under your pillow before you go to sleep, and hopefully when you wake up in the morning, you'll have gotten over yourself. I chose the Conservation of Energy Relic Power. After using an ultimate ability, you regenerate 10% adrenaline. This makes Tsunami effectively cost 20% adrenaline when using Incite Fear. It's absurdly strong. The other power I planned on using is Fury of the Small. Our basics generate 1% more adrenaline. I gathered 1 more low-level artifact for just a few dozen more chronotes so I could unlock the Shadow's Grace relic power for an additional 1,000 chronotes. It reduces the cooldown of movement abilities like Surge and Dive by half. We'd be able to surge and dive every 10 seconds rather than every 20. Mobility is very important during the Zook fight, so yeah. I made 15 Acadia incense sticks. By adding quorums to the sticks, we can acquire a buff that increases the damage of our weapon poison by 10%. I grabbed some super restores from this shop on Mazcab. There's a part of the fight where Zook drains your constitution and overloads don't fix that, so we need some restore potions. The very last thing I did was kill some exiled Calphites for quorum seeds. I planted them and waited. Then I finished my incense sticks. Okay, this is the last thing. I mined some ore. 2 Luminite, 2 Rune ores, 2 Dark Animica, and 2 light Animica so I can make an Elder Rune round shield. During the Zook fight, we'll need to use some defensive abilities which require a shield to be equipped. Abilities like Resonance, which heals you for the damage you would have taken, or Barricade, which nullifies damage for around 10 seconds. Now I was ready for Zook. Because the hacker couldn't steal my auras, I used my Vampirism aura. Auras are like little self-buffs that have a somewhat long cooldown. Vampirism, for instance, lasts for an hour, but it has a 3-hour cooldown. With it active, I heal for 5% of the damage I deal, up to a max of 50 life points per hit. It's not a ton of healing, but it's better than nothing. Now on to the Zook fight. There's a total of 17 waves you must fight through before Zook enters the fray. The first 3 waves are simple enough. Stand in the corner and let the enemies come to you and try to keep them behind barriers. The priority targets are the Zekhar Ki, the little bat guys. They aren't particularly strong, but if they hit you, they drain your prayer points. And if you're within 7 tiles of one, it can use a special attack that drains adrenaline and 60 prayer points. You want to kill them as soon as you can. If they're all dead, and a Zekhar Zil is attacking you, finish it off. Otherwise, just kill the guys that are currently hitting you. The Zekhar Eat Mage Kot are most likely to get stuck behind a wall, so ignore them. Wave 4 is an igneous wave. You need to kill the igneous Zekhar Her and absorb their energy to stun Zook and do damage to him. The igneous mobs all have some sort of gimmick. For these ones, you just gotta stun them or else they'll heal. After killing enough of the igneous mobs, you can use the special ability that pops up and then stun Zook. Once you stun him, you need to do 50,000 damage before he recovers, otherwise, you need to repeat the igneous wave. It's not that big of a deal though, the igneous waves are actually pretty easy. After doing the 50,000 damage, you get surrounded by a ring of fire with 5 volatile Zekhar Her. You need to kill as many of them as possible, otherwise they'll all explode and do a couple thousand damage each. I managed to kill 3, so it only took 5,000 damage. I screwed up wave 6. You're supposed to stand in the northwestern part of the arena, but I didn't. By standing in the northwestern part, you can trap the Zekhar Jad behind a stone, and then you can kind of deal with everything else first. But I forgot about that and kind of got him in a weird spot. The gimmick with Jad is that he's liable to one-shot you. Like, actually. He can hit like a 20,000 or something like that. Like, that's his max hit. His max hit is 20,000. So even if you have a bunch of damage reduction buffs, like all the obsidian armor and everything, you could still get one-shot. He's very strong. But using the correct protection prayer against his attacks negates the damage completely. You need to switch prayers based on his animation. It's not so bad with keybinds, so I wasn't too worried. I did what I could to reposition the other enemies. It wasn't perfect, but I survived the wave. If you're being attacked by Jad, he's the priority target. Unless there are bats nearby and it's safe to deal with them, then deal with them first. You do not want to run out of prayer while fighting Jad. Wave 7 introduces another ranger, the Zekhar Tokzil. They can be dangerous. As they stand in one spot, they accumulate stacks of a buff that increases their damage by 1%. They gain 10 stacks at a time, up to 250 stacks. Yeah. If they aren't actively attacking you, great. If they are, make sure their stacks aren't very high. Wave 7 also introduced Zekhar Mage, but they're not notable. I think they make themselves immune and summon a low version of themselves. I don't know, it never gave me a problem. You just kill them. Wave 8 isn't very much different than Wave 7, and Wave 9 is another igneous wave, this time with Zekhar Zils. The igneous Zils heal unless hit with a threshold ability. Like the first igneous wave, kill the igneous Zekhar, stun Zook, and burn 50,000 of his health. Wave 10, the second challenge wave, puts you up against an unbreakable Zekhar Ket. It doesn't take any damage unless the hit is more than 3,000 damage. If you fail to kill it, as I did, you just take a big chunk of damage. It doesn't really matter much. Wave 11 has 2 Jads, but I was positioned correctly this time, so only one of them attacked me. The other one was stuck behind a rock, like an idiot. But I was scared to move away from the rock, in case that made the second Jad shimmy to the left or right, so I remained pinned to the rock, taking a ton of damage from this lava-spewing hole. Nonetheless, I survived and made it to Wave 12. This wave introduces probably the most deadly monster in the whole fight, the Zekhar Ketzek. They place a debuff on you, Geothermal Burn, which can do some pretty mean damage. And it stacks. Yeah, you can clear the debuff with the Freedom ability, but they can reapply the buff every 15 seconds. If you're being attacked by multiple Zeks, it can get pretty hairy. Then, lucky Wave 13. I killed one of the Ketzeks, was collecting myself in the safe spot, and forgot to clear the Geothermal Burn. It killed me, ruining my chances at an Igneous Stone. A little spoiler though, even if I didn't die here and I made it all the way to Zook, he would have killed me. But we can still try killing Zook regardless. Every challenge wave acts as a checkpoint so we can re-enter the fight at wave 11 after restocking our supplies. I also realized I never got the Fight Cauldron armor buff. You can put 15,000 Tokul in the Fight Cauldron coffer for 20 minutes of 10% more damage reduction. I got a lot of Tokul just doing the waves, so I grabbed 40 minutes worth. I was more careful with positioning this time and made it to the third and final Igneous wave. This one is composed of Zekhar Mage, who, as I've said, aren't very threatening. The Igneous Zekhar Mage will heal if not damaged a few times while standing inside its protective bubble. Super simple. I damaged Zook slowly after stunning him because I wanted to make sure I had 100% adrenaline before beginning the next challenge wave. This meant repeating the Igneous phase, but it's one of the easiest ones, so it's not too bad. The goal of this challenge is to not take damage. The easiest way to avoid damage is by using Barricade, an ultimate ability that blocks all damage for up to 10 seconds based on the level of your shield. The enemies hit pretty hard, so this is a foolproof way of avoiding all damage. Wave 16 is 3 Jads, but if you stand behind this rock, you only have to fight one at a time. I put the wrong prayer on and luckily only got hit for 3.5k. Could have been way worse. Wave 17 is, ironically, probably the easiest of all the waves. You fight Sekhar Aken, a stronger version of the Fight Kiln's final boss, Har Aken. It's simple. Attack the head. When you see a lava blob shoot up next to it, move. When it submerges, kill as many of the tentacles as you can. When you get the message that Har Aken is bombarding you, surge away. The most annoying part was that he dove into the lava with only 2,000 health left, so I had to go through a whole entire submerge phase just for him to pop back out and get killed by like 2 hits. Finally, Skalzuk. He's surprisingly simple. 3 auto attacks, then he says you will break beneath me, and gives you the geothermal burn debuff. Freedom clears it. 3 more auto attacks and he says Sear. You need to travel 15 tiles to clear the debuff. Surging forward and then diving back is more than enough. Another 3 auto attacks and he says Tremble before me. Fall before my might, or the earth yields to me. Before his sword hits the ground, surge forward to avoid all the cracks in the arena. A 4th set of 3 auto attacks, and he drops a rock on your head. Switch to a shield and use resonance. You don't heal from that, but you take no damage. And then finally, after 4 auto attacks, the pizza phase. He goes to the middle of the arena, like one of those little like table things that they put in a pizza, you know, that like keeps it from the box from falling out. Yeah. So he goes to the middle of the arena and he spawns an igneous Sekhar Her and fills the place with fire. But he doesn't put fire in the little wedge area where he spawns the Sekhar Her, so it looks like a slice of pizza. Hence the name Pizza Face. After a few seconds, the fire subsides and a new mob spawns and the room fills with fire again, except around the new mob, a Sekhar Zil. This happens once more with a Sekhar Mage. There's about 15 seconds worth of time between each mob spawning, and after the Mage spawns, you have about 20 to 30 seconds to finish everything off. If you don't kill them fast enough, and you don't absorb their igneous energy and stun Zook, Zook kills you. That's it, period. You just die. This is a DPS check. You will die. There's no avoiding it. Zook starts twerking, and he kills you. If you do kill them all, you could stun him like during the Igneous waves. Then the cycle repeats until he has 100,000 health left, where he resets his cycle. It doesn't matter where he is in the cycle, he just goes back to the top. I failed the first pizza phase. He didn't kill me because I teleported out, but I knew I was gonna fail. Thankfully, the checkpoint is right at Zook, so we could just try again. This time I decided to bring a Ripper Demon instead of a Pack Yak. A Ripper Demon increases your damage by up to 5%, scaling with how much health your target is missing. The extra damage might help. Making Ripper Demon pouches is a bit tedious. You need 2 Hellfire Metals, 2 Bloods of Orcus, a Blue Charm, and a Summoning Pouch, and 200 Spirit Shards. And this only creates the binding contract. You still need to go kill a Ripper Demon to bind its soul to the pouch. And killing the Ripper Demon was an ordeal, but I managed. I restocked, cooked some sharks, refreshed my Fight Cauldron buff after killing some Tsar for extra Tokkul, and returned to Zook. Because my Vampirism aura ran out, I switched to my Maniacal aura. It increases my magic level by 10% at the cost of decreasing my defense by 15%. Quite the trade-off, but I'm using a level 70 weapon, so I need all the help I can get. That's a pretty constant theme. And I died on the second pizza phase because I clicked, a tick? 1 tick too late? Then I died making another Ripper Demon pouch. You see, when you die, you lose the familiar that's with you. It's annoying. I was rushing because my aura was still active. You can't pause these things. And then this attempt, I made it through 2 pizza phases and got Zook down to 40,000 health, but I thought I was out of food and I didn't eat the 1 shark in my inventory, and he killed me. Even if I ate it, I probably still would have died, but it hurts to die so close to winning. At this point, I was pretty pissed. By the time I restocked all my supplies, my aura would be done. But then I thought, why am I using magic? See, the benefit of using magic during the waves is the extra range you have. You can position things and get them stuck behind each other. You don't have to run right up to them to fight them. But now that we're fighting Zook, we don't need to worry about that. Why don't we just use melee? I can just smith an Elder Rune 2-handed sword, a level 80 melee weapon. 4 Elder Rune bars is all it takes. And I can use my Berserker aura, the melee equivalent of the Maniacal aura. I returned to the Fight Cauldron and gathered about 30 more obsidian shards, 24 to craft a melee helm, and a few extra for repairs. After smithing the items, I went to get another Ripper Demon familiar, and these things just kept killing me. You see, when you drop below a certain health threshold in the Ripper Demon cave, you get piled by them. They smell blood in the water and they all attack you. But look at this bullshit. This thing had like 2 health left and my hits just kept missing, and then they kill me. I went to the Lonely One in the Wilderness instead. I bought a Strength skill cape since its effect increases the number of times the Dismember Bleed ability hits. Also, skill capes give extra damage to all combat styles. The Guthix cape only grants magic damage. I made a few potion flasks to hold 18 doses of super restores, which I bought from Mazcab. And lastly, better food. Sharks weren't cutting it, so I went and fished up an inventory of sailfish. They heal for 2400 health each instead of 2000. To avoid burning any of my fish, I bought a cooking skill cape and wore it since it prevents burning. And finally, 20 minutes worth of the Fight Cauldron buff after killing more Zar for more Tokkul. First melee attempt, I gooped and got hit by a bunch of the quake spots on the ground. I teleported out so I didn't die and lose my Ripper Demon. Second melee attempt. The pizza phase went poorly. The ranger started healing, so I teleported out. The third attempt. The pizza phases went well. I got him down to 100,000 health just after he applied the geothermal burn debuff on me, so I held off on clearing it. Remember, his cycle restarts after 100k, so he did the geothermal attack again after 3 auto attacks. I cleared the debuff and continued the fight as normal. Then I surged and dove back to clear his suffered debuff, and finally I surged out of the way of the cracked ground. Then I tunneled. 3 auto attacks and he dropped a boulder on my head, hitting me for 2586 damage, putting me just above 1000 health. But I still had plenty of food on me. The pizza phase was coming after 4 auto attacks, but I hit him with 1 final quake and defeated Zook. Christ, this video is long as hell. My knees are hurting me because I'm sitting on the floor. But I did it. Here's the loot. Like 20 hours worth of work for 6.5 mil. Man, RuneScape without banking is hard. Thanks for watching. So this is the part of the video where everybody clicks off, but I wanted to announce just quickly before Necromancy releases that I've opened up channel memberships. If you want to support the channel monetarily, you can become a member and unlock access to very trivial perks such as emotes to use in chat and a little chat badge next to your name saying that you're a member. And at the end of every video there'll be a little list of all the channel members. And that's basically all I'll be offering right now. I don't want anyone to feel compelled to become a member, so I have no plans of locking any of my content behind a paywall. And that's also not to say that people who don't become members aren't supporting the channel. Simply watching the videos, liking, and subscribing helps a ton. This is just something a little extra. Also, I'll be streaming Necromancy on launch. It'll be very fun, but we're not going to be racing, we're just going to be exploring. Come hang out.